Good morning, guys. Good morning, guys. I can't even speak, apparently. I'm pretty mellow right now. I just did a Muse meditation. If you've ever used this bad boy, this is what it looks like. So it actually senses your brainwaves. It's a really cool biofeedback way of improving your meditation. And I used it years ago. I actually knew the CEO, and she sent me. This is when Muse was first coming out years ago. Sent me the device, used it for a while, and then I just kind of stopped using it. I don't know why. And then recently, I was like, you know what? I think my meditation would benefit from having some biofeedback because I have a tough time just sitting still by myself. So I've been enjoying this. I got a new one, which is the more up-to-date one. Anyways, so I typically do my meditation after I drop off the kids. Sometimes I need to decompress after dealing with the nonsense of the morning. If you've got kids, you can obviously appreciate what it's like sometimes. Anyways, today I want to talk with you about this whole idea that my thing is different, right? My situation, my business, my market, my whatever is different or unique. And this is one of the most common. It's so funny because everyone thinks that their situation is different, but the reality is that it's all the same. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is I had a lady contact us because she had seen a bunch of our case studies and testimonials, and she's like, "Oh my God, thanks so much for sending this stuff. This looks great. Do you have any testimonials from people in the UK? Because I live in the UK and my market is different." I'm like, "Oh man, you're not different. You're the same." So here's the thing is, in response to this individual, the reality is that no matter where you live in the world, the one thing that remains the same is you're dealing with humans. So it doesn't matter if I send you a case study of someone who has a British accent who lives in the UK, or someone who has a British accent who lives somewhere else in the world, or someone who's American or Canadian, because the reality is that all that is an excuse. But my market's different. People in the UK don't spend money on health. Nonsense. It's nonsense. And it's nonsense, but it's also your reality, because if you believe that to be true, then that's what you're going to create in your world, right? That's what you're going to create in your business. And so one of the things that I've heard a few times from people in the UK is that people don't spend money on their health because they have universal health care, very much like they do in Canada. I live in Canada, and we have clients who enroll clients who are Canadian. Not every single one of the 35 million Canadians is not willing to invest in their health. Very much like in Britain. Like, I don't know what the population is. It's probably more than Canada, maybe 50, 60 million people. I don't even know. But to make the assumption that like your country as a whole is different is a very limiting belief. Now, let's say that, and I understand where this is coming from, right? So someone runs their own local business and they live in a small town, people don't spend money on whatever. That's understandable. But you have to remember that what we're talking about here is building a virtual coaching business, which means you don't have to post flyers at the local pub. You don't need to post flyers at the local Starbucks. There's this amazing thing called the internet. And people from around the world can find your stuff if you know how to put it in front of them. So you could live in the smallest, most remote town with zero population, surrounded by sheep in the middle of the mountains in New Zealand. And as long as you have a Wi-Fi or internet connection, you can build a thriving business. And the reason for that is simple. You choose who you want to target if you're running Facebook ads, for instance. So if you live in the most remote area of the world, you can tell Facebook, "Hey, Facebook, show this message to people who live in New York City only, or across the entire USA or Canada." And that's the beauty of this. So you don't limit yourself to thinking that your geography is what's holding you back, because that's a really nice story to keep telling yourself, and it's not serving you, right? It's not serving you. And if you are saying to yourself, again, in response to this individual, "Well, I'm not doing anything online." Well, that's great, but that's your choice. I'm showing you that you don't have to be limited by your circumstances. I actually shot a video from the beach when I was in LA the other week, And I said there's two types of people, right? There's those people, first category is people who complain about their circumstances, and the second category is those who do something about it. It's really that simple. Like that's life. If you don't like your situation, you can change it. So if this individual is running a brick and mortar and they don't feel they can do anything online for whatever reason, then that's their choice, right? So keep complaining about it. And if that's serving you, that's awesome, but it's probably not. Second option is you can do something about it. Is you could say, well, listen, do I have to be limited to working in my brick and mortar? Could I possibly help people online? Could I possibly do that? And if the answer is yes, then great. And if the answer is no, then you have to ask yourself, well, if where I currently am working or living isn't serving me, am I willing to pick up shop and move somewhere else? And the answer to that might be no. But as I've said before, like the one thing that, like in my experience, the one thing that separates the successful people in this world from those who don't achieve their dreams is that successful people do whatever it takes. And that goes down to desire and hunger. So your situation, your market, your whatever is not different. It's not unique because the reality is you're dealing with humans, and humans are humans are humans. When I was on Dr. Oz years ago, he asked me, who does this work for? Like when I was talking about my all-day energy diet. And I said, listen, in my experience, what I'm about to share with you has worked for, as long as you're a human being on planet Earth, this can work for you. And so he asked the audience, how many of you guys are human beings from planet Earth? And it's the same thing here, right? It's the same thing here is that if you feel like your program's different because, or your market's different because, or your situation is different because, I want you to understand that that's nothing more than a story you're telling yourself. It's a story you are telling yourself. It's a story you're telling yourself. It really is, right? You can either continue to tell that story or change what you're doing, or change either your perspective around it, or just change your situation. If you don't like, for instance, if you're dealing, we have a client, and I'll just share this with you. We have a client who had a really successful pipeline. Like she was getting so many calls booked. She actually had to bring on another person to help her with her enrollment calls. Like it was ridiculous. And she had like 100 plus calls. Hundreds of calls booked for like $11 a call. It was insane. And she was helping parents with kids who have autism because she's one of the world's best at doing that. And what happened was that she found after hundreds of enrollment calls that none of them were willing to pay anything. Like I'm not even talking about several $1,000s. I'm talking about anything because what we had done every single week we were touching base and I'm like, okay, well, try this, give this a shot, try this to qualify them better, and then it came down to it. We're like, listen, let's try this. You have how many people on your list? Send them an email and offer them just to see if they'll bite, like a really ridiculous offer. Like it was a couple $100 and still people were sending her messages like, F you, how dare you, all this kind of stuff. And we got to the point where I said, listen, you have two options. Number one is somehow you're attracting these people into your worlds, and that's going to be something you have to do some work on. Or we completely pivot target markets, because obviously what's happening here isn't working. It's not serving you, and it's really frustrating. So I know you want to serve these people, but if they're not willing to be helped, you can't help them. And so we made the decision for her to pivot and focus on a demographic that she can still serve very well based on her experience, and that is probably more likely to invest in their health. Now, with that said, does it mean that parents with autism across the entire globe don't invest in their kids? No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that at all, right? And again, you could, and maybe some businesses, some coaches are successful in that endeavor and getting people to pay premium prices, all that kind of stuff. And that's a risk you have to take to say, listen, I'm willing to push through this, and these are the people I want to serve, and you can figure out a way to make that happen. You can. But it all starts with you, right? You are the person that attracts that stuff into your life, so it all starts with you. But again, like that was the option. It's like, well, you could continue doing that, or you could just change target market, right? There's no sense in complaining. There's no sense in doing all that kind of stuff. So we want to change our approach or change who we're speaking to. So I want you to, just before I finish off here, is just, ask yourself, like, am I using a story or an excuse that's holding me back? Am I telling myself, other people, that I'm not where I want to be because insert excuse? And listen, like you have two choices. Like you can change that story or you can keep the story, right? So you can have your excuses or you can have your results. And I can promise you that 80% of our clients are American, 10% are UK, 10% are Canadian. And that's because that's based on our targeting. You know, if we had decided to run all of our ads to the UK, we would enroll a good handful of people, or more than a handful, a good number of people from the UK. Like for me, it doesn't matter. Like I don't care where people live. I think people make a lot of poor assumptions thinking, okay, let me target people that have a lot of money. So I'm going to target people who live in Dubai. Like they're all sheiks, right? Like apparently they've all got money or something. I don't think that's a great way of thinking about it. And like, yes, you know, within the US, for instance, if you're targeting more of a health conscious audience that might be a bit more progressive and health conscious, maybe the Eastern Seaboard, the Western Seaboard might be good options to test, right? Because they tend to be a little more health oriented than the Midwest as an assumption, as a stereotype. But again, like you just have to test that out, right? So anyways, that's the deal. If you are thinking that your thing is different or unique, it should be in the sense that it's differentiated from everyone else. But at the end of the day, it's not, right? Like in terms of your situation, like your business, the people you're serving, the town or the city in which you live, it's not a unique situation because everyone else is dealing with stuff, right? They're either living in a very, very, very busy, competitive city and therefore they think there's too much competition, or they're living in a smaller center and apparently people don't have money there, or there's not enough people. The solution to all that is use the internet. Right? And you use Facebook ads to put your stuff in front of the exact people you want to serve whenever you want to serve them. That's the solution. Cool. Listen, if you want help with that, if you want help to kind of move out of that story and start attracting your perfect clients, head on over to workwithyuri.com. That's workwithyuri.com. And let's see what you're up to, what you're up against, and see if there might be a good fit for us to help you out with that. Again, very specifically, we only work with health or fitness experts who have an existing business, who have a track record of serving clients, who've been doing this for a while. And if you're just getting started out, probably not the best fit for us. But if you're someone who has a proven offer in the sense of like you've had people paying you money for a specific coaching program, but you want to improve it, you want more clients, you want to double your business over the next couple months, then we can probably really help you out with that. So again, workwithyuri.com. Head on over there now, answer a few questions, tell us about your business, and then book in a time to speak with us, and we'll take it from there. Sound good? Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you have an awesome day. Bye.